Hi, and welcome back to the channel. It's true, my name is Norf, and you decide that you want to level up, so you've been looking around for another job, and then you see that job. You can imagine yourself working for that company in that role, so you decide in that moment, yes, I'm going to apply for this job. You then decide to update your CV or your resume. You also update your LinkedIn profile. You complete the application and you then send it off. You finally get through the first phase of the AI filtering process, though not all companies use AI filtering, but you get through that first phase. The recruiter then sees your CV and they think, yes, we want to speak to this person. They then arrange and get in contact with you to say, yes, we'd love to have you on a telephone interview. At that point, what happens now? Well, fortunately, in this video, I'm going to share my 10 top tips to ensure that you are absolutely ready for your telephone interview. So if you're ready, let's get started. Searching for a new job and standing out in that job is a real challenge, and competition could well be relatively fierce. You've done your research and conducted due diligence into the company that you're looking to apply to. You've looked at different industry trends, you've looked at some of their competition and their customers. You've also taken a deep dive into how this company gives back to the community. You've looked at different benefits, their value system. You've also looked at their social media profiles. How do you set yourself up for success on your phone interview? Now, I'm not going to go through any of the questions that you've undoubtedly put together. What I am going to do is look at you. How do you bring a lot of this hard work to life? So in this video, I'm going to share my 10 top tips in terms of how you can do just that to ensure that you are successful on your phone interview. My first tip this week is space. Ensure that you have got a clear, quiet space to hold your telephone interview. It may be that you're in a house with a few different people. You can always holler down the stairs or let people know beforehand, at this particular time, I'll have a telephone interview, just so they are aware to ensure that they are quiet and they're not causing a distraction to you. You also want to make sure that your space is nice and light and free from any distractions. Distractions like soft clicking of a refrigerator or anything that could cause you to switch off and get out of your flow. So ensure that your space is light, free, and quiet to conduct your telephone interview. The second of my tips is, of course, your tech. Ensure that you've restarted whatever device you plan to use, that your tech is fully charged. If you're going to use a cabled headset, ensure it all works. Run a couple of test calls. If you're going to use a Bluetooth headset, ensure that they are also fully charged. Be sure to test your tech as well. You may want to call a friend or a relative to ensure that your audio is crystal clear. By all means, use just one earpiece, but I find that if you want to remain focused, plug in both earpieces. That will ensure that you remain in the zone and in your flow state for your telephone interview. The third of my tips is a relatively straightforward one, and that's to wear comfortable clothing. If you're wearing something that's a little bit too tight or a little bit too loose, that could well cause a distraction. And at all costs, you want to avoid distractions. Speaking of distractions, wherever possible, try to keep them down to a minimum. The fourth of my tips this week is simply to drink water. Now, us as biological beings need water to survive. It can take anywhere between 5 minutes and 2 hours for our bodies to be fully hydrated. So if you know that you're going to be on a telephone interview at 11, start sipping water at 9 a.m. A bonus tip would be to use an open top glass, maybe a pint glass or a large glass, rather than a canteen. Why? Removing the lid of that canteen could well cause you to drop out of your flow state. It may also make a bit of a squeaky noise that could get picked up with your audio headsets. So avoid a canteen or anything with a lid. Simply just use a large glass full of water instead. My fifth tip this week is to warm up your voice. You want to avoid voice breaks when you're on your phone interview. So make sure that you warm your voice up prior to getting on your telephone interview. Singers, of course, will do this all the time. Before they belt out those really high notes, they will warm their voice up and they'll spend time going from the lowest that they can in their register all the way to the top in their register and back down again. They'll perform scales. singing in the shower is a perfect example of how you can get your voice nice and warm before your telephone interview. My sixth tip this week is to use Amy Cuddy's power pose. Now, obviously, you're not going to be seen on your telephone interview, but you want to give yourself the best possible opportunity to ensure that you nail your telephone interview. So ensuring that you stand up and adopting one of Amy Cuddy's high power poses will ensure that you're psychologically and physiologically configuring yourself for success. I can remember on a couple of telephone interviews, I physically stood up whilst speaking to the recruiter. Why? I want to up the energy. If I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about, then I want to ensure that that passion comes across in my voice. And standing up for me is a great way for that to happen. My seventh tip this week is to use one of my favorite mediums, and it will be pencil and paper. Why? To ensure that you've got something to write down any notes on. It may well be something that you're thinking about or the recruiter's asked you that you're going to revisit, but make sure that you have pencil and paper with you. It may be a notepad and pen, or for me, it would be loose leaf A4 paper and a pencil. My eighth tip this week is to practice your opening. A typical recruiter question will be, tell me about yourself. You would have spent time crafting this and planning it, so practice what that response is going to be. Not that it's fully scripted up here, but actually you know exactly where you're going, you know how long that will be, and that will get you off to a really great start. So practice your opening. My ninth tip this week is to be intentional. Choose the words that you're going to use. Plan what you are going to say. Not to the letter, but roughly plan the direction that you're going to go and the responses that you're going to give to the recruiter. A bonus tip, as you're practicing being intentional, record yourself and listen back to it. Listen out for filler words like kind of, like, so on and so forth. As you play these back, you can listen out for them and you can choose to either remove them or to replace them with another word. And my 10th and final tip this week is to wear a smile. You may have heard that it's actually possible to hear someone smiling. So you've done all of your preparation, you've got yourself ready, your space is set up, you've tested all of your tech. Make sure that you wear that smile. Smile, of course, in appropriate places. Smiling does two things. It helps portray and project your personality on your phone interview. Smiling also helps with vocal inflections. Just imagine if you're not smiling. Sometimes you can come across relatively serious and monotone, which is what you want to avoid on your telephone interview because you've done so much work to ensure that you want to set yourself up for success by not smiling. That makes you sound quite boring, as you can tell. But actually, by smiling, it helps inject inflections, moving your tone up and down to sound interesting. And there we are, that's it. My 10 top tips to ensure that you nail your telephone interview. And it may be your first or your second interview, but using these tips will ensure that you're set up for success. My first tip this week was to ensure that your space is clear and quiet and free from distractions. My second tip was to ensure that your tech is fully charged. Whatever tech you're planning to use, ensure that it works and test your tech beforehand. My third tip this week is to ensure that you're wearing comfortable clothing. It could well be a t-shirt, it could well be a pair of joggers, it doesn't matter, but wear comfortable clothing. My fourth tip is to sip water, at least 2 hours before your telephone interview. My fifth tip this week was to warm your voice. Voice breaks could well be a little bit embarrassing, so ensure that your voice is nice and warm. My sixth tip this week was to perform the power pose from Amy Cuddy. Get yourself physiologically wired for success. My seventh tip this week, as you know, I love pencil and paper, but ensure that you've got something to write on and something to write with that works. My eighth tip was to practice your responses and particularly practice your introduction. Tip number 9 was to be intentional. Record your introduction, play it back. Are there things that you want to change? Are there filler words that you want to remove? Ensure that you are intentional. And my 10th tip this week, one of my favorites, and that is to wear a smile. And that's it for this week. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time here. Let me know in the comments below whether you found these tips useful. I would love to hear from you. As I say, thank you so much for spending your time here, and you know I'm a big fan of the number 3. So if you would, please do 3 things for me. If you like the content, please do give me a thumbs up. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed, and also hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on when I upload brand new content to the channel. Again, thank you so much for spending your time here. Good luck with your telephone interview. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you next time.